Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Talk GG. It's been quite some time. I think now it's since the last episode. It's been about a month, but we're back with episode 6, and this episode we're going to talk about mental health in connection to streaming. And as usual, I have Dave with me. Hello, Dave.
What's up, gamers?
I'm gonna fix the volume there for a sec. But before we start this episode, I thought it would be good to just kind of reintroduce ourselves because I think I came to think of this now, leading up to this episode, that we haven't really, I guess, properly introduced this show because we just kind of went with it and iterated. I mean, we had a pilot episode and then we just kind of tried to do things. But the idea of Talk GG is basically just to have a casual chat which includes topics in esports and nerd culture. And I mean, if you're tuning in for the first time, this sounds very, very, very vague. But me and Dave, we both stream, but we go kind of way back now. I think it's been around like maybe 5 years or something, 4 or 5 years, something
It's
like
been
that.
many moons, my friend.
Yeah, and so basically, me and Dave, we met in Japan a couple of years back when we both lived there, and I think back then we both realized that we never really had enough time to talk about things, even when we were, meeting each other in real life.
Pretty
Because
much.
every time we started talking about something, we couldn't really stop until we had to, last train or whatever. But ever since then, we've both moved back to our own home countries. So I'm in Sweden, and Dave is on the West Coast, in the United States. But we felt like we wanted to keep the conversations going, so we started Talk GG to kind of have a space where we can talk about stuff. And this isn't my first podcast. I think I did the Fellows in Arms podcast a couple of years back, and it was kind of a similar thought process there, where it's just like, I want to discuss stuff, and maybe, I have we have the technology to stream it, so why not? And if people want to discuss it or if they want to pull something from it, they can. But one thing I do want to point out, because in the previous episodes we did have some kind of, I guess, more newsworthy leaning episodes where we talked about recent topics. And I mean, both me and Dave, we do have experiences with esports and streaming, but we don't. At least speaking for myself, I don't consider myself to be like an industry expert of anything that we're talking about on this cast. And I kind of wanted to just make that clear, that we're just having a casual talk about stuff.
But Defer, you have a game design degree.
Oh yeah, I can't forget about that, and I do like to point that out. But honestly, they that degree, it basically just teaches you to see the obvious things that everyone already knows. But you spend
Damn.
you spend a crap ton of time of just writing stuff about it too. But nevertheless, we're gonna get into episode 6, and now we've kind of switched the format from going to like a two-topic episode to being more of focusing around one singular topic. And whether that's esports or nerd culture, that can change from episode to episode. But this week we're going to talk about, or this episode, it's easier to say that. This episode we're going to talk about live streaming and mental health. And it's been a topic that's been on our minds, and ever since I think the first episode we were discussing, like we've like kind of been poking and prodding the topic for quite a while, and I think we've been kind of unsure of how to talk about it, but we finally, as we progressed, we got more and more into it, and then now finally we're here. So we're going to talk about that and kind of give you a brief overview of why we're going to talk about this as well. So I'm just going to switch the overlay here, which sounds really weird if you're only listening to the audio version of this. But this is streamed live as well. So if you are listening to the audio version, this is live on Twitch when we do record them. And then later on, we put them up on YouTube for the video VODs and then audio versions. But so looking at kind of streaming and mental health, I think it's one of those topics that has been on, I think, both me and Dave's minds, looking back at things, because we're stuck in the pandemic, and I can't even remember the week number anymore. It's just it's out there. It's double digits somewhere. But you have a lot of time to think about stuff, and I think the last few months there's been several kind of incidents happening, and people actually committing suicide in the streaming world, and it's something that you do get affected by it when you hear about these things, and it's actually one point of contention I wanted to bring up with you, Dave, today as well as later on, is the fact that we do only discuss these things when a newsworthy topic comes up with someone dies. And that's kind of why I think we wanted to talk about this too, because it's like it's like how you feel, and streaming is very much connected to our lives, and it does affect us. Is something that we do have in our minds, but we never really talk about it until someone dies. And I think for us in the recent months, it's been people in media that has been prevalent. Reckful, who unfortunately died not too long ago. I think it was maybe a month prior. It's very hard to keep track of time here, but there was the birthday anniversary for Etika, who committed suicide last year, and there's been several instances of this, and it's horrible. You read about these things, and it does affect you, and you become sad, and you think about stuff that, how does this relate to my life, and we were thinking about like how were we going to talk about that, and sorry, that was a really bright screen popping up there for me. I just got flashbang
monitor.
Yeah, I got flashbanged if you saw the VOD there. But yeah, it's I guess one of the difficulties about talking about this topic is like, where do you start, right?
Right.
And I think maybe let's this is a casual talk show, right, Dave? So like, let's just start with ourselves. I think that's the easiest way to do it. Like,
okay, yeah, let's
like
do that.
how do we feel? Like maybe it's
how are you feeling right now?
Yeah, exactly. Let's start there. So both me and Dave, we stream now and then. I've actually taken a break now, and in connection to this specific topic, actually, because I've been feeling really shit, and I think it has been connected to not just the streaming. I think we're all under pressure right now with how the way the world is right now, but streaming has been very prevalent in my life now in the pandemic. And back in March, April, I was streaming almost daily because I was alone at home, and now I tried to go with a schedule where I had like first 5 or 6 days, and then I cut it down to 4, and then 3, and then 2, and then it was like maybe one,
and then left off.
Yeah. No, but yeah, it actually did kind of go down, and
yeah,
I right now I feel okay. I think we're all living in a different kind of scale right now. If like 1 is the worst and 10 is the best, I think no one really goes above 7 or 8 these days. Like if you're not living in a like paradise right now, you probably never go above 8. That's my pessimistic view. But and I feel like I'm around like a 5 on that scale, 4 or 5, give and take, which is okay for me. It's okay. I feel fine. How do you feel, Dave?
I feel all right. I know what you mean by like it's hard to feel higher than like a 7 or 8 these days, just like all things considered. I mean, I don't want to like this is tough to articulate actually, because that's a good question. Like, how do you feel? I think that's something that we don't ask maybe often enough. But at the same time, that question or that phrase does draw a lot of criticism for like, I guess, being vague or like not really appealing to someone's actual feelings or something like that. I'm not particularly like offended or anything if someone asks me how I feel, because at least that means like, hey, that's someone reaching out. That's like that's an attempt at conversation, right? Like that's the point. But it's just a starting point. Um, it is a hard question to answer though, because I think typically like, well, in the States, like we use like "how's it going" as
Yeah.
like a hello,
Yeah.
right? And I'm gonna get into something kind of deep here, but it's like growing up, I used to think, why do we ask people how are you doing and we don't listen to them? Because the point of saying how are you doing is just to say hello. It's not to actually listen to how someone's doing.
Yeah.
But like I always like logically I think of it as um I would like to know how you are doing. So like whenever they don't answer, like how their day was, I'm like, oh, why didn't they answer me, right? So so like I would like I don't know, I would like feel bad about it or something like that.
No, but
But
I understand. It's similar in Swedish. Like people ask
okay.
how are they feeling, and usually the only response that you should give back is good. Like if you do it,
Okay.
but you know so it's the same. It's like the bar. What is it? The barkeep asks in America, and then it's like,
Yeah.
how are you doing there? And then it's like, oh well, not oh fuck, not another one.
Yeah, it's like just order a drink, buddy.
Yeah,
So I'm
but
not
yeah,
going crazy.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I earlier I was gonna say, yeah, we're already like halfway through the year, more than halfway through the year, right?
that's crazy.
And so yeah, like I mean, it's not that the pandemic has covered the entire year. For some people, it actually has, like in Asia. But like, for a lot of us, this didn't become like a huge deal, I guess, until March.
Mm.
That's still a significant amount of time to be in a situation that we don't necessarily choose to be in. So there's that kind of loss of like agency. I really hesitate to say this, but loss of freedom, right? Because there's kind of that argument.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I was okay with it at first, but these days it just feels like it's a bummer because so much stuff has happened this past year that like yeah, all I get to do is either I like work on stuff on my computer or like I try to do stuff that takes my mind off things on my computer or I have to sit and like think about the stuff that I wasn't thinking about earlier.
yeah,
Like those are
yeah,
my three choices almost.
yeah. And I feel like I'm in a similar kind of I guess routine. The weird thing that I've had now is that like it's different everywhere in the world with the situation, but a lot of people in Sweden are actually they're kind of treating this very casually. Even people that I know that are educated and they are doing stuff, and I feel like, wait, am I the weird one? Why am I just still staying inside, kind of thing? So I have
Hmm.
that. But definitely for sure, it's just like doing stuff on a computer, which um, I think out of comfortability has become streaming. Doing something on a computer, it is kind of creating content. You are streaming, you are putting yourself out there, uh, and you kind of all at the same time are shutting off your mind, especially if you're playing some games like Valorant or something. You have to focus on the
Hmm.
game. Uh, but I mean I know that from experiences that if you do have other stuff on your mind, it's gonna affect you when you do things that you find fun. So even if it is streaming or playing games, I get super affected if I'm feeling bad. Uh, I will play worse. Like it's 100%. And it annoys me so much because I know that back in the day when I had the like ambitions of becoming like a pro in games and stuff like that in esports, uh, I know that other pros they have the same thing. They when they have a bad day they play like shit in their minds, but they're still way good. But when I feel like shit, I play so much worse that I like it's embarrassing. I don't even want to play anything anymore. And I think that has something that kind of started to affect me now lately is that everything I'm having trouble to kind of keep everything up, like keep up the kind of keep streaming, keep doing the stuff because the other stuff is kind of like inching itself into the thing. And I notice how I'm like starting to play worse. I start to get more angry when I play, even though I don't want to. Like, I can go into a game when I'm streaming and be like fuck yeah, I have a great day here. 5 rounds in, I'm like swearing, I'm sweating, I'm being like, what the fuck is happening here? You know, I can be super angry, and then
That ranked Valorant, man. I don't know. Like,
yeah, I mean, and I think it's hard to kind of get out of that, because that's also like you get into a comfortable place as well of being negative and toxic and stuff like that. I think that that's one of the kind of parts of this I guess episode to talk about streaming and like how it affects you, because I do feel that, and I think we have kind of touched upon this a bit in previous episode. I believe it's been kind of a while now, but is that I think streaming to its core is kind of done especially lately. It's very like gamified. Like you stream, you have like achievements that you want to do, and then like especially on Twitch, like when you start to stream, and that's kind of been very, I guess, prevalent for you now, which is like you have a bunch of goals to reach affiliate so that you can get the next extra features of Twitch that gives you more value, and that you're valued more on the platform. And then after that, I've had these things where if I have more subs, I can get more emotes, and then I can be seen more. It's very like gamified, and I think that's been on my mind a lot. Where it's just like,
I sometimes you just want more emotes, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you gift yourself subs, and but no, but I think I think we kind of look past that a lot of the times because it's fun. It's like games are fun, right? So streaming as a game, kind of.
That's the idea.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
then some people like playing Dark Souls.
But that's not fun. That's just torture. By the way, so a quote from me. I love this quote because it was I was ashamed of it at first, but so when I did study game design, because you brought it up earlier, thank you for doing that. There was some people that studied kind of checkpoints, and then they interviewed me about that, and then I said in the quote that they had as a study that I never want to play Dark Souls because it's a shit game for like not for shit people, not word by word, but I said something like that, and I basically said that like it was the past me, it doesn't represent me now, but basically I said that
some people play Jump King.
Yeah, exactly. So, I said in chat, some people play Jump King. No, and I said basically that I can't understand people that enjoy it. Whenever I do that, I just want to turn it off before even starting it, and I just want to play some Team Fortress 2. And that was it was such a big quote, and they used a part of that as their like study title. So the next year students were like, okay, we're gonna look at some other studies that they've done, and then we're like, okay, here, look at some guy potentially, me. And then it's just like me sounding like a freaking idiot with Dark Souls. But yeah, no, I guess tangent aside, I think when we did take a look at this topic of like streaming and kind of mental health, we were looking out to previous discussions, because I think this gets discussed in waves as well. Like, I mean, there is this like mental health month, right? But I mean, besides that, it's kind of these incidents that I mentioned earlier. Like when something really bad happens, people kind of force themselves to talk about this. Or it is an assigned week or an assigned day, specifically like this, people
this
that
podcast? No, I'm just kidding.
No, but like I like traumatic
I know what
events
you mean. It sucks because you're right. Like one of the articles you shared with me, one of the headlines or the subtitles of it is, we only really talk about mental health if a famous celebrity commits suicide, and then sorry, in that same vein, like mental health awareness week is like awareness month. Mental health awareness month is May, and it's like, so the other 11 months out of the year, do we not care about it? This is like a criticism that I think is valid, but is used in other ways for other things that are not so great. But like, why do we need to designate specific times just to be like, hey, we need to celebrate this, right?
Yeah.
Why can't we be celebrating it or talking about it or raising awareness about it like all the time? Now,
Yeah.
obviously, from like my profession, from like a marketing standpoint, that makes sense because in terms of like seasonality, programming, media, PR,
Yeah.
that like you're filling in blocks of like time that otherwise you might not be as creative about using, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one theme I've noticed about any sort of talks about mental health, especially in like the gaming industry or like amongst gamers and streamers and stuff like that, is that we don't talk about stuff like this enough.
Yeah.
There are too many high profile streamers or famous people, famous on the internet. Like, sure, they're not Hollywood celebrities, but that's besides the point, right? They are people who expose their lives to thousands, tens of thousands, if not more, people all the time, and they're all just like us. They're all broken. They have their own problems. They grew up in dysfunctional homes. They have anxiety, and they talk to therapists, they talk to doctors, they talk to their friends live on stream, and they reveal stuff that that we realize is like, hey, this might be like something that's affecting all of society, or hey, they're just honestly, it's okay to not be okay. Like that's like kind of the point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel one of the things too is that that kind of um I guess I'm not sure if it bothers me, but it's kind of I guess annoying in some way is that um n- negative tone, like topics that have like a negative tone are like complex in this kind of way.
Yeah.
You feel like you kind of have to hype it up to kind of be able to talk about it because it becomes like a big thing. And I mean, we struggled with it as well, and I think that's a part of it. Like we were like, okay, let's talk about this thing, but that's one of the issues is that when you do that, we were like, okay, we need to do something, like we need to kind of make a like theme it in some way,
Oh
but
yeah.
you can just
Yeah.
talk about it. It doesn't have to be a big thing, and it doesn't have to be centered around like an event or an incident, unfortunately, but that happens too, and I don't think that those things are bad. I think they have their own place, as you said, like having a month, especially when you do consider marketing and stuff like that, and time is money and whatever. But and when people do commit suicide or when they hurt themselves or things like that, others do get affected and they need to be able to talk about it. And I think that's I mean I feel like we're in such an infancy when it comes to streaming and streaming culture to kind of actually realize like how damaging this can be to people mentally. Like, I can casually say that like, oh, gamified streaming, it can sometimes feel like it sucks, sometimes it's fun, but then like 20 years later we're gonna look at this and be like, what the fuck's wrong with us? Or it's gonna be like taking all over our lives potentially, of like
Yeah.
making everything super gamified. And I think if we're gonna even have a shot of being able to kind of handle that, I think we just need to be able to talk about it casually, and be able to say, I feel like shit, and that doesn't have to
Yeah.
be hard, but it is. I mean, we have to kind of. I think you just admit that it is hard to be like in this day and age to be saying that, even in the smallest senses of like, how are you doing? Well, I don't feel good. I've now when people have been asking me that, I'm not ranting for 5 minutes to like annoy everyone that asks me that.
Mm-hmm.
but I basically say, if someone asks me, I say I'm okay. This has been happening, but it's okay. I'm pulling through. And then it doesn't have to be like, oh, okay, and then we have to talk about it. Just being like aware of where someone is. I feel that honesty is something that we need now when we're kind of stuck like this and we have to think about things. um I think on the opposite side of the spectrum of having, how do we talk about these things, yeah, you recommended him as well, which is uh Dr. K, who streams and talks about mental health on Twitch as his
Yeah.
like as his kind of main topic, and I feel like that's kind of on the other side of the spectrum where it's like it's what he does. Like he constantly talks about it, which is also a good thing. You know, you can't just have one or the other. And I feel like
Hmm.
I was listening into kind of his video on grief, loss, and suicide, which I mean we're gonna link it in the kind of in the description on our VOD. And for anyone who wants it here in the chat to view afterwards, it's about I think 1.5 hour long video where he I think it's pulled from a stream, right? Where he's just kind of
I think that was, yeah, I think that's the entirety of his stream. Like pretty much immediately after Reckful passed away,
yeah,
because he was scheduled to do a different like interview or show on that day, but instead, um, that happened. Reckful passed away, and so he decided to kind of just have like a monologue on that day instead.
yeah, but it made sense, and I enjoyed that like because it's interesting. I've never seen anything like that on Twitch where it's like, you know, we joke about Twitch culture being, you know, this can sometimes be really random and funny, but it can more often not be super toxic of like, you know, piling onto someone, even if it's like a raid or someone getting like, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
harassed or whatever. But it's interesting to see someone like Dr. K in this space where he's just like talking about stuff that most people find hard to talk about, and he's just doing it. You know, I think it's a very good he's a very good example of showcasing that. It's just like, and I mean, he's very. I guess I'm not sure what kind of degrees he has, but he seems to be very educated on the topics as well. So it feels, it's not like he's kind of going into really kind of difficult terminology. He's just kind of talking like one of us, you know,
yeah,
and being very clear that, but still explaining stuff, you know, oh, this happens because of this. You do feel bad because this is how things work. And I really liked one thing that kind of, I guess, motivated myself, and I've heard other people say this too, but I got reminded of it when he said basically that um, that when you do feel really bad, you it passes, like it's temporary. Like you
yeah,
can feel bad for a long time, but it will kind of go back into some more neutral state. Whether that neutral state is like, you know, what level that is on is different for everybody. But if you have like a huge dip in your um mood, or like how you feel, then it will eventually get back up, whether you like it or not. Like you will start to think about more positive stuff or not less negative stuff. And in some cases, uh, it's all about just kind of letting that time pass so that you can come back to that. And I feel that's something um, that I really enjoyed when he said that, because I feel like that's something that people don't realize. Like when you do feel bad, it feels like a freaking eternity. Like you feel like
yeah.
everything sucks, time moves slower. Well, like
Hmm.
it really does feel like that. But then if you manage to kind of remind yourself that this is just a temporary feeling, then you can stop yourself at least from doing stupid things, or
Yeah,
like, you know, take out your frustration or something, or, you know, in worst case scenarios, like harm yourself or harm others. And I think someone else, yeah, like I guess we've mentioned him on the cast before, but like Day9 has also had these kind of types of streams in the past where because he's also been, you know, I guess like it feels like probably half his life has been in front of a camera and like streaming at this point.
yeah, for sure.
And he like way back at this point is probably like 10 years. He had a stream where he talked about um, a lot of things like going through and emotions and stuff like that. And one of the kind of things he had in mind when he felt strongly about something or when he was really sad about something is that I think he made a metaphor of that being, you know, like grass flowing in the wind, that they're gonna be like pushed away, but then they're
Oh.
gonna like go back up. And he had a way better way of saying that in his own words, but the kind
Hmm.
of the kind of painting that image of, like grassy field, and wind flows through sometimes, and that's a strong emotion, but that wind is gonna pass, and it's gonna feel better later. I don't know. When I felt really bad now, like a couple of weeks back, it's kind of things like that not focusing on that you should feel better, but focusing on that, like, this is not everything. I felt that helped me, at least. Maybe this is also kind of vague because we haven't really, I guess, gone into why something affects us negatively with streaming. We've only been talking about
I think
it.
I think we have to get personal about
Yeah,
it,
and
honestly.
that's fine. I think for me, what really kind of got to me with streaming is that, like, one of my goals with streaming, and I think I have also mentioned this here. I feel like a fucking broken record at this point, but is that
No, it's okay. This is your therapy session.
yeah,
It's
no, but
good.
it's that I always try to kind of improve whatever I stream or create and make it better, like iterate on it. And I think when that, like, doesn't start to match with what you get in return, then you start to doubt yourself. And that was actually something that I think one of the other stuff that we read about, which was Alpha Gaming. He was also talking about, like, how you kind of connect your self worth with streaming,
Yeah.
becomes very real. It's like, okay, so this month I actually did get this number of subscribers to my Twitch. And this sounds so stupid when you say it out loud, I feel like, but and I feel like, okay, I did this much content, I did this much fun stuff, and then the next month, okay, I'm gonna do even more. And then when I felt like I didn't have that energy, I couldn't match it, and then suddenly, like, I didn't have as many subscribers, and then it's like it kind of fell apart in some different areas, and I got more and more frustrated because it's like I'm almost fighting against myself, but also um the system, like the gamified streaming system. I
The
want to become,
system, man.
no, but I want to become bigger, but I don't
Yeah.
feel like it really at the same time. So it's like, why am I doing this, and why
Yeah.
am I not growing as fast as I want to? um and then those thoughts lead you to, like, okay, maybe I'm not as good of this, maybe I'm doing stuff wrong, maybe I'm wasting my time, like, why am I doing this? And most of the negativity from that has passed. I still have those questions in my head of, like, okay, am I wasting my time, or should I be focusing on this? But most of the negativity was very, like, made me feel very cloudy. uh and a couple of years back I wouldn't have been able to do what I did now, which was just basically saying, okay, I'm just gonna stop for a while and see what happens. Like, I don't know. Like, it streaming is just making me feel bad right now. So I need to stop doing it because it's really, I don't know what's happening. I can't control it.
Wait, is this making you feel bad too?
No, I think
I mean, it
and
is different. Like we're having a conversation, whereas when you stream yourself playing games, it's a different dynamic, right?
yeah,
Like
exactly.
you're trying to entertain
Hmm,
as like number one, and like you even said like it changes the way you play games, right? Like
yeah,
I noticed that difference too, but I think one of the differences in our experiences is that I think you have way more experience in actual competitive gaming.
mm,
Like you wanted to become a competitive player. Like I've had aspirations of that, but like I never actually, like, to be real, like I never had the chance,
yeah,
right? You could partially put that on I was born too early. You could partially put that on the fact that I just did not, I didn't have that competitive mindset.
yeah,
And so when I play games, and especially multiplayer games like on stream, it's predominantly like a social activity,
yeah,
because you'll notice that I don't, I mean, I'm just gonna get into like what I do now, I guess, but like you'll notice that I don't particularly play any multiplayer game alone on
yeah,
stream. I always have either a full queue of friends or at least one other if we're like going into a game of Valorant or something like that. And then other than that, we both talked about this, but I won't. I've been entertaining single player games, and I actually
Yeah.
just completed the campaign to Titanfall 2,
Oh yeah.
and that was really fun because all I was really doing was enjoying the game and then like giving my comments as I played, and then people in chat would like reciprocate, right? And so
Yeah.
that was nice. But I don't know what I was getting at here, but
No, no,
like
no. But I see what you mean, and I think it does like it has an extra layer of playing something competitive when doing these
yeah,
streams because it's like the it's not only about the performance of entertainment, it's the performance of like how well you do in a game, and especially it puts itself on edge when you're playing something uh like Valorant, where you will have like four people screaming at you that you suck,
yeah, yeah,
and you're like, fucking goddamn it, you know. And I mean, I've had this in a similar way because I streamed Arms before,
yeah.
and my way around that was that because it got to me bad as well. Like I really wanted to be one of the best players in Europe in
Hmm.
Arms, and then I streamed it. I streamed it a lot, and I hit my skill ceiling roof, and I have bugs flying out here.
Bugs in your room.
Yeah, and so uh, I hit the ceiling of like, okay, I it's very hard for me to just like casually exceed my skill here. I need to put in some real hours to like do that, but I can't. I
You
don't
were
have time.
explaining that the other day too. You were saying like you're kind of in this awkward position where you're better than like every other European arms player except for like this tier of player, and then you said the work you have to put in to get into that tier of player though is like um I mean this is hyperbole. I'm exaggerating, but it's like
Meh.
exponentially more work, right?
Yeah.
Like you were saying, like you can still scrim arms casually every now and then and maintain like your kind of rank, but
Mm.
like to get past that, you're gonna have to start playing arms like not full time,
Yeah.
but you know like super regularly in
Yeah,
order to
and actually,
train.
yeah, put in hours onto that, and that I think my way around that was that I was like, okay, I can't do this. I want to be involved in this, and I want to create content, and that kind of steered me into commentary, which you know you can just watch the thing and then pull all the knowledge you have from playing the game, but just not being put on the spot of actually having to perform uh, mechanically. You can just perform by talking. And I think that's I don't know. It's a very weird balance because you do want, or at least me, I want both of them. I want to be able to compete and entertain, and like having both of
Hmm.
this. And I watch other streamers like freaking I don't know, Leffen or whatever, who or one of the top players in Valorant who are just like joking, and then they're like doing these like incredible things on stream. You're like, God damn it! Like, how can
Yeah, those
I?
guys are really talented. The ones who are
Yeah,
like really good, and then they just casually go, "Oh yeah, it's easy, easy clap, guys."
yeah,
Hogs in the chat. You know, I'm gonna make this comparison that you might not like, but like it reminds me of the Alpha Gaming the talk he had or the monologue he had about how um his analogy was like imagine your job is to make friends
oh
in
yeah,
school,
yeah,
and like one week you make a bunch of friends and it's great, and then the next week like you lose a bunch of them and it's like,
yeah,
oh, they're not your friend anymore. Like the whole gamifying the subs and the viewers of Twitch
mm,
does make it seem like it's kind of like a damaging way to view relationships, right? Like if people
yeah,
talk about the parasocial relationships we have these days, and I don't mean to like drag social media all the time because honestly social media is just a tool,
yeah,
but it plays to specific like I don't want to call them fault, but like negatively associated behaviors of human beings, right?
yeah,
And so like one big parasocial activity is like, oh, there's this big streamer and I look up to them, but like they never talk to me and I basically stalk their life. You know, like that's not a good way to live your life, right? But another not good way to live your life is to believe that your self-worth is tied to a number on a screen, you know, whenever you're live. And
yeah,
the person I wanted to talk about is XQC
oh yeah,
because he actually talked to Dr. K about this. And his problem, right, and what made him kind of entertaining though, but his problem is that he's very competitive because it's something he grew up like with. But I mean, basically, he has a relationship with his father that he wishes to repair, right?
Ah,
And part of like how he tries to cope with that is to be extremely competitive. But whenever he feels like he's not doing well in a game like Overwatch, he believes that his self-worth is has tanked incredibly.
yeah.
So what he does is he tries to push people away. And so he'll purposely like be very toxic, like hate on his chat, rant at them,
Mm.
and basically purposely drive away viewers. And
Mm.
like it's a really strange behavior to have, right? When you're like I mean, he goes live and he gets like an automatic 15, 20,000 people watching him. It's like insane, right? But
Yeah.
like it was a problem he's had for a while that like he would go live, he would play Overwatch, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm like sucking so much," and like everyone get out of here and just start banning people, you know? And Dr. K was like, "Well, why? Like, why do you, you know?" He asked the questions that lead him to realizing that like he thinks that because he's not doing well, he doesn't deserve attention anymore, so people
Yeah.
should leave. But they don't want to leave because they like him for who he is, and that's the problem. He doesn't even like himself for who he is.
Mm.
And so he gets confused and he tries to force them out of his chat, and that's like that reinforces that behavior that like is unhealthy for him, right?
Yeah. And I mean that's really cool. And I mean I've jokingly bashed QXC.
That's
No.
why I brought him up.
Yeah, I mean I've bashed him before, but I that's very interesting to hear, and that also that he came forward to that conclusion. But because even if you do have the conversations or having someone asking you those questions, I don't think everyone is capable to like understanding and realizing why they are kind of feeling bad, or like that something that doesn't seem to be related, such as his relationship with his dad and gaming. Like maybe to him it wasn't really there, and I think a lot
Right.
of people it's hard to make that connection and being honest with yourself and being like, yeah, that's actually why I'm feeling bad. Um, and I guess now when I start to think about it, I think when we compare, like if I compare me with you in terms of like how we treat streaming, I feel potentially that you might have had a better relationship with streaming because uh because like just of how you kind of have been getting into it kind of uh maybe on your own terms is kind of the best way to put it. Like you do, I feel like when you've been streaming, it's been very much like you just do it, you're fun, and like that's where it gets you. But it's like I feel that for me, I've tied too many things to be like, okay, it should be like this, it should be something like this. If I don't get this, then something is wrong. Like I have too many things that kind of ties me down, and I feel like
Hmm.
in the end that kind of damages what I'm actually doing, because I think we spoke about this off an episode, was when I was watching a good friend of mine, which maybe now is a friend of yours too, which is Ian, or Ian Why Not.
Hmm.
And I was watching his stream and just seeing how positive he is, and thinking I want to be that. And then I watched like his VOD and I watched my VOD
Oh no.
next to each other, and I'm
The
like,
comparison.
yeah, and I started comparing myself to him, like, and I think you can do that in a positive manner. Like you can look at others and be
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
I want to be like that. But the fact that I compared myself to him and be like, why the fuck am I sucking so much? Why am I angry? And he's just happy and just enjoying his life. I was like, God damn it! And then meanwhile, both me and Ian have been very vocal on Twitter and saying that we feel like shit, and
Oh,
it's like it's shows differently for us, because he's
yeah.
been also saying that I can't do this, guys, because he's also running a podcast about anime, like and a bunch of different podcasts actually with the OK Beasts. So he's also had this kind of a lot of initiatives, and so I think that was a part of that. It kind of also brought me into this, being like, okay, Jesus, I need to like step back for a bit. Like this is not good when you compare yourselves to people that you enjoy being with, even like your friends. I think that's a
Hmm.
bad place to be. Um,
Yeah, I watched one of his VODs recently. It was actually one of his Stay Sane Sundays. Because I remember overhearing him talking about like his kind of his stream setup with his cameras and stuff like that, and so I found that really pretty interesting, and I wanted to like review his VOD. But yeah, like the whole premise of his Stay Sane Sunday thing is like to do art with a friend. And so I can see why especially in that particular instance or that specific day, he seemed to be in a pretty good mood overall. I mean, it was like very chill. Like if I were to describe Ian, it's just like very positive, chill vibes, right?
yeah,
Like he uses the word vibing a lot.
yeah,
Um, but like I guess the something that Twitch chat and like all of us will not see is what is life like once he turns the camera off, right?
yeah,
And that's something that we all realize for ourselves, but we don't realize for like other people. And then that's like kind of an extension of like the overall problem of like do we know if someone is hurting or not, right? Because we might realize that for ourselves, maybe we might not, right? And I understand like the difficulty of the expectation of like I gotta put this smile on, I gotta put a mask on when I
mm,
turn this camera on, but when I turn it off, like I take it off and nothing has changed,
yeah.
right? And that's kind of part of the whole discussion about depression and how it is so difficult to kind of get out of a feeling like that.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I was kind of struggling with too when I was thinking about this is because um, when we did look into like the previous discussions of how people have been talking about how they feel when they stream, is that actually it seems like a lot of content creators have made various videos about this. At some point, they
Mm-hmm.
do feel shitty enough that they need to say something, and that translates to either doing a stream to talk about it like we are doing now, or like a video or something like that. And what made me think about that was that, like, you know the creator's experience of this is different from a viewer, and I'm wondering if,
Yeah.
like, kind of, I guess, asking myself honestly, like, how is that something that the viewers should care about? Like, because it's hard, they're kind of just taking in content, and then someone feels shit. Like, how can we even do something about that? As because I'm streaming, but I'm viewing so many things as well at the same time, and I feel like
Yeah.
I have no answer to that either. Like, and it becomes even, if you look to examples in hindsight, I think a lot of people were just like devastated by Reckful, or Etika, or
Mm-hmm.
everyone else that
Mm-hmm.
has been affected by depression, but feeling so helpless because you can't really do anything because you're having this kind of connection with someone. For them, it, like, their life is falling apart, and you're just watching some stream. It's so, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
wacky. And that's what I mean when I say that we're like in the kind of infancy of streaming, is that, like, we have no fucking idea what is happening. Like, people, I think, potentially could be super affected by this moving forward, or are already being affected by this, but we have no idea to, like, how to treat it even. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't
I
know.
see Dr. K. Oh, sorry. I see Dr. K as a very like as a pretty optimistic person, but he does mention that he feels like mental health as like an industry or as like I don't know, a system or institution, it really is failing people
Yeah.
because based on I mean he's had like I've watched him enough now because he'll stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I'll just like catch bits like bits and pieces of his streams. Like sometimes they're with streamers that I care about, sometimes they're with people I don't care about, but he'll like bring up certain things about how things work in the medical field and stuff like that that are very interesting, such as how does the American medical system work, right?
Mm.
And where does our money go? Like that's like people who have never heard of how that works, like they had their minds blown because they realized, oh, we're just paying more money for nothing,
Yeah.
right? And like mental health in general is I think people have been saying this for a while, but maybe it's just not loud enough, or people don't care, or it's hard to monetize or something like that. Because
Mm.
here in the States, it seems to be a case of like if you can't sell it, then it's not worth it to like promote or something like that, right?
Oof.
Which is really, that's really shitty, right? That's
Yeah.
that kind of brings up the whole point of like, we should be treating mental health the same way we treat physical health. But honestly,
Yes.
here in the States, we treat physical health pretty poorly too,
Yeah.
because we only want to care about our health when we need to fix something that's broken. We
Yeah.
don't like, I have friends who have poor health, and like they talk to me about it, and like they joke to me about like how I shouldn't be like I like to drink soda, right? And they joke to me about how I shouldn't be drinking soda. But I'm like, dude, you're ready to have a heart attack. Like, what do you like? Why are you telling me this stuff, right? Like, you should be like, it's insane to me because like, I think about people and how they don't see the doctor, they don't care about exercise, they
Mm.
don't, they don't make sure like when they feel something wrong with their body, they're like, I'll just ignore it,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I do it too, right? And it's so
Mm.
bad because we're it's so ingrained in us to like not go see a doctor
Yeah.
because we're just like, how much is it going to cost, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's a huge problem across the world, where we're not willing to like admit that like maybe we have a problem, and that
Mm.
we need someone to check up on us, and that we need to do work to maintain something, right?
Yeah.
I've always noticed this was an issue for people kind of talking on the internet. They're always like, "Oh, friendship is very hard. How do you have friends after college?" Oh, like, taking care of yourself is really hard. You got to put work into it. And the reality is like, yeah, everything takes work, right? Everything takes effort. And mental health is one of those things, and physical health is one of those things. And we just didn't, I think mental health is the next one to get a lot more attention,
Mm.
because we've had plenty of like movements towards like better living here in the States, or at least here in California. Like, we're considered like a huge like hippie population of like people on these weird trends of like food and like exercise and sunshine and shit. Like, it's easy when like our weather is really good. But like, mental health is something that I think people are starting to realize is something you need to like work on, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't just be like, "Oh, I'm sick, I better go see the psychiatrist or the psychologist."
Mm.
No, it's like, you know, you have to constantly have conversations like this. You have to be able to express yourself. You have to be able to confide in people.
It's like working out, I guess. It's like
Yeah, exactly. You
like
gotta work out
to
your
keep
brain.
yeah, to keep I mean yeah, because like to keep a good physique you have to be working out, right? And I feel like the mental part of that of like working out would be to actually just having like it's very much the same thing, like, it you don't maybe you if you work out you don't have to go to the gym, but even just taking a walk actually like it helps a lot of shit, like there's been
Yeah.
studies, and in the same way
There's
it's
been
like
studies, yes.
you don't have to be like, okay, I need to go, and this won't happen, but like you don't have to go to fucking brain surgery and like analyze shit in your brain, like you can just say something to anyone, like even just talking about not feeling good to anyone is like that's a point in the right direction, and yeah, I feel like you're really on a good track here, and I feel like that specific point about treating mental health as physical health really kind of shows you how far behind we are of thinking about it, at least. And that's kind of
Yes.
one of the
Yes.
things that I've been personally trying to kind of improve, is that like, let's say now that I took a break in streaming. It's almost like, okay, let's say that was a physical thing, Let's say that I do sports and
Yeah.
I break my ankle. I take a break from sports, I can't fucking run
Mhm.
with a broken ankle. The same
Mhm.
thing is that like the streaming and like correlation to like the mental health is like, I don't feel good. Okay, then take a break
Yeah.
because that shit needs to heal.
Yeah.
And the systems aren't there. They're not, they haven't caught up at all, and I do feel like you have to respect the system that you do live in, because otherwise in the case of work you might get fired
We live in a society.
yeah. Yeah, but it's like, or if you are like, let's say a full-time streamer, you will lose income if you take a break. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
horrifying, you know. But if you do have a system that kind of, or you can work within that system to kind of alleviate those issues, then that's a point in the right direction. So one
Yeah.
of the things that I live in the, progressive paradise of Sweden. We have
Oh yeah,
shit like
dude.
healthcare and shit. It's like one of the things that I've done, that I felt like I needed to do, but it was so hard to do, was that I took a sick day for feeling mentally bad. Like I felt
Mm-hmm.
so like it's hard to explain, but like I think maybe 1.5 years ago, I had one of those, dips where you dip for like a month, you feel like shit,
Yeah.
um, and I think like when I hit the peak, I was like, I almost didn't want to get out of bed. I was like lying and staring at the ceiling, like this. I feel like so bad, and I
Yeah.
called in sick, and I felt so guilty about it during the entire day. But then afterwards, I'm like, I'm so happy I did that because that's how it should be. I
Yeah.
can't change the system because of doing that, but I'm happy that I was able to use the system I'm in, to, at least listen to my health. And in a similar way, I think it was probably during the same period. I was trying to kind of force myself into those, you know, just treating your mental health as a physical health. It really kind of puts everything on the edge, because I was like, I don't feel good. Maybe I should like see a doctor, like you see a doctor when you have, a runny nose for like 3 weeks. Like, what the fuck's wrong with my
Mm-hmm.
nose, dude? Like, I've been just feeling like my energy was like 50% lower than it was last month. So I went to a therapist or psychologist. I actually don't actually know the difference, but the doctor that you speak to, and I told her how I felt and that it's been lower, and basically after a while she was just like, yeah, you don't have a depression, like I can't diagnose you with a depression, but you're definitely feeling low, so you need to be like aware of it and treat that, like self treat that. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, that was easy. But before that, I felt so bad about, calling my supervisor at work and being like, I feel bad. I know you have can I talk to a doctor? And she's like, oh, email thread about talking about mental health. I felt like shit about it. But then in
Mm-hmm.
hindsight, it was like, it wasn't that bad. It was just that
Yeah.
taking that step out to be able to do that. Um, that's where the issue lies, at least from my experiences. Um, and yeah, I mean, yeah, as Kat was saying, doing that in school as well. And I mean, it all. I think I also did probably do that when I was younger as well. But in hindsight, I'm not sure whether I was just skipping school or if I actually was.
Right.
Since I am an adult now, I'd like to at least think I have a fully developed brain at 26 years old, but I'm not sure. But
You'd like to believe it, but
yeah.
just kidding.
No, but yeah,
To be fair, I always cite that number that was found in a study where it's like 25 is when the average human being has like finished full brain development.
forehead.
And so that's crazy if you think about it. When you
Yeah,
think about like legal
implications.
age limits for everything.
Yeah. No, yeah,
So
no, but
yeah.
I think maybe that's something, if we're gonna like have some kind of optimistic endpoint for this conversation, is to like, um because it's not the same for everyone, how you feel bad about something. And I feel
Hmm.
streaming for us has been prevalent because that's what we've been doing a lot, but a lot of people feel bad in any cases. But just trying to be aware of it, you're one point in the right direction. Trying to kind
Yeah.
of do something about it, holy shit, you're fucking god. It's like the, what is it, the Quake, when you get like the monster killing, like it's like, oh,
Yes.
you got it, dude. You got the fucking, you juggled someone with 3 rocket shits,
Yeah.
and I think those wins, like how you win those kind of battles in that war of, mental health, or fighting against the negative sides of it, is different for everyone, and it's differently, just speaking to someone can be feeling like the end of the world, while for me that can be the easy part. But just kind of having an introspective and like considering yourself and being aware of yourself, you're doing great. Great moves, keep it up. That's what I kind of want to say. But
Ian.
yeah,
Or no, Ethan.
Ethan, exactly.
Thanks, Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, Dr. K even said that being aware of something is always like the first step. And he was saying he was actually saying that there are studies that have been done that show that awareness actually helps to change your behavior.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound intuitive. Like how we think about a lot of things is not particularly intuitive. Either it's because of like by the way, I hate the term common sense now because everyone uses like common sense, and it's like it's clearly not common when like everyone's going, I don't know, like, is this common sense or not, right? So there are just certain things that I feel like people don't like. I don't want to say they don't think about, because I don't know all the answers either, right? Like I listen to a lot of podcasts about self-development and kind of like understanding how people study things, and it's interesting to hear that like, stuff like mental health, stuff like behaviors, stuff like what motivates people. Like we think about all of that stuff like maybe incorrectly, or maybe we haven't approached it in a way that like we find fits ourselves, right? And so
I think,
I don't know what I'm trying to wrap this up with.
No,
but...
I think one important distinction I want to make out of that though is that at least from my perspective, when I think about awareness, like being aware of something, I think a lot of people equate to being they've heard about it or they know it, and I feel like okay, fine, you've heard about something, but it's like
it's different from
it's the point of like understanding why or how, and being actually like, okay, what's the context for it? Like if you it's like, I've heard about the coronavirus. It's like, cool. Like, what are you gonna do about it?
I'm aware of its existence.
Yeah, exactly. And so in the say, just being aware of yourself, that doesn't mean just, okay, I'm like this, it's like, okay, but why? Or like, how do you act when you are like this?
Yeah.
Asking those
I mean,
questions...
it's harder to find out the why. For sure. But
for
like,
sure.
I think if you take us for example, like if you're streaming and you're just not feeling it and you're like, man, like this just doesn't feel fun. Yeah. Like being aware of the fact that in that moment you're not having fun, like that's a good first step, right?
Yeah.
And then eventually you can figure out why you're not having that fun. And it might actually not even truly be related to the streaming, right? Like it might be some childhood trauma. Like that's the sad part that I feel like is the case with mental health, is that, and Dr. K said this too. He was like saying, dude, everyone's messed up somehow, and it normally has to do with something from their childhood. Yeah. And it's kind of daunting to think of that, but it's also really relieving, because now what I realize is like we all have our own problems and our own demons, and it has to do with something that like probably messed us up when we were just children and just still developing, but we haven't come to terms with it, because we build our own systems to cope, because like when humans were not like in civilizations like this, and we're like hunter-gatherer tribes, like if you get scared by something, your natural response is to be like, every time I see that thing, I'm going to be scared.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to have adrenaline, I'm going to have the stress hormones, cortisol, like I need to be ready to like fight or flight, right? Nowadays, like we're in this society where we have to like, we're relatively peaceful, most of us. We work jobs, it's like what are you even doing? But then like you still have the same primal feelings, and it's like it's hard for us to adapt, right? So quickly. And I think that's like the big problem, right?
Yeah. But I think all in all, just kind of, I guess what we wanted to demonstrate, I guess, with this episode as well, is that it's not really that bad to just talk about things, It's like,
I think that's the whole point, is that we should be talking about stuff like this.
Yeah, and I feel like not being stressed about things is a part of it, me pausing kind of the streaming, I felt a bit guilty about that. But then it's like, if I actually figure out why I'm not feeling that good right now, despite all worldly events and what's happening in the world, uh, getting to that point to understand that journey can be so much more valuable than just being able to stream another month, right? Like if I
Exactly.
understand myself more, I'm gonna be that's the fucking level up moment, That's gonna be
Hmm.
the I can't, do the gaming gaming metaphors. You know what I mean. Yeah, and I think um
That's why people romanticize like going on a journey to the mountains to like meditate, right? Because it is kind of like removing yourself from everything that stresses you out and then finding yourself, so to
yeah,
speak, right?
yeah, exactly. I feel like just it not even the result, but just like the journey of trying to figure yourself out can be worth it.
Hmm.
Um, and honestly, I feel better now. At the end of this
That's
episode, I
great.
feel
That's great to hear, actually.
yeah, just being able to talk about this
Not
and
not to toot my own horn, but like, so I don't know if you've ever taken the Myers-Briggs personality test.
oh, I have, but I can't remember the personality. Like the what is it? Get the
Yeah,
four
the
letters
four
right.
letters. So
Yeah.
I'm an INFP, which puts me in this place. Like the nickname they give me is like I think the mediator or something like that.
Wait, I have the same
Apparently,
thing. Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
apparently I match the streamers Lily Pichu and I think even Pokimane. Because they were talking with Dr. K about this too, right? And they like Lily was like, "Oh, I love Myers-Briggs," and so when Dr. K talked to her, he said that the way your personality works, and Dr. K uses a lot of like Indian slash Eastern philosophy concepts in his practice as well. So he refers to like Hinduism and stuff like that a lot.
Yeah.
But he was saying your personality type, Lily, is the type where people go to you to talk to you about their problems. So you're a sponge. Like you're a really good sponge because you listen very well. The problem is, Lily, like who's your sponge?
Yeah.
When you don't get that chance, that's why you think these like thoughts about yourself.
Mm.
And I honestly think it's the same with me because a lot of people have like told me that I'm very easy to talk to or like they feel comfortable talking to me, right? And then people will tell me about their problems or they'll rant stuff to me and they'll blow steam off and they're like, "Yeah, I love talking to you, Dave. Like it's really great." And then I'll be like, "Fuck, like I have these problems. Like what do I
Yeah.
do now?"
Yeah. I think
Right? So,
no, I completely understand, and I think that sucks first of all, but and I do hope that you find someone that for that sponginess, and I think I remember I had also the mediator as a title, so I can really relate
okay.
to that. The interesting part is that I've also noted now when you were saying that, like that I'm worse at listening to people in English, I think, than I am in Swedish because of native, just being able to relax and speak in your native language is a different thing, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Um, but that's interesting. And Kat saying in the chat, not a Myers Briggs believer. And I mean, you have to, I guess, take those with a grain of salt. But it's
Yeah, you
a it's
definitely
a,
do.
it's an interesting kind of way to, it's not a definitive answer, but it can help you maybe unlock some stuff. And I do feel like it has, just trying to figure out who you are. And no, I can completely, you know, relate to what you said about that. Uh, but yeah, I feel like we've gone through a lot actually. Like a lot of these kind of
Yeah.
things that we have been talking about, we will link them in the YouTube description. I don't think you can link them at all in a Spotify description. That would probably
They
be
don't work too well.
that
No.
would be probably horribly
So check out
formatted.
the show notes.
Yeah,
Thumbs
exactly.
up.
Yeah, but if you want to know more about these things that we've mentioned, the Dr. K or Alpha Gaming, we also have some articles there. You can check that out. And maybe I can check out which what is it, the 4 letter uh, combination of Myers-Briggs I have
take
for the
take your test again and see
yeah
how you do.
for the next episode. But I think with that we're gonna kind of wrap things up for this episode, and I guess. It remains to be said when the next episode will be. We keep switching things up here with Talk GG, but I'm looking forward to it more now than what I did an hour ago because I was able to talk about this. Uh, no,
well,
no,
no,
but
that's good.
honestly,
That's good.
no, because you did mention like, did this affect you? I was streaming, it does feel easier to stream these things and talk about these things than it does
Yeah.
about playing. But now it feels better, even so. So I guess thank you to you, Dave, for being on the show again with me. If you haven't followed Dave, you can do that on Twitter and Twitch. He streams. Do that. And same with me, Defur on Twitter and Twitch. But that's, I guess, going to be it for this episode today. Unless you have any closing remarks, Dave.
No, I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, cool. So thank you for everyone who's been tuning in on the stream as well. And thank you for anyone who's listening to this afterwards. We deeply appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next episode of Talk GG. Bye-bye.